Are former lawyers bitter? A few weeks ago, there was an article published on Above the Law with the title, "Why Are Former Lawyers So Bitter Sometimes?" As you might imagine, I have many thoughts, so let's get right into it. I'm Sarah Cottrell. I practiced law for 10 years, and now I help unhappy lawyers ditch their soul-sucking jobs. Up front, I want to make one thing super clear. I am not trying to drag the author of this piece. I think the person who wrote this article is genuinely confused about why lawyers who have left legal practice because of negative experiences are vocal sometimes about those negative experiences, which led them to leave. But I think this piece serves as a really good example of the type of thinking that causes many lawyers to feel trapped in the law because they have been taught to invalidate their own experiences. So what I'm hoping to do as I walk you through some of the problems with this piece is to help you recognize the gaslighting that we often see in the legal industry so that you are able to break free of it if you need to. Oh, and I've dropped the link to the article in the description box so that you can also read it and draw your own conclusions. Okay, so first, let's talk about the title of this piece. Why are former lawyers so bitter sometimes? To start, I want to acknowledge that there are certainly former lawyers who are bitter about the legal profession. I am not trying to make a claim that there are no bitter former lawyers, but the title of this piece, and in fact, the whole piece, is premised on flawed assumptions that former lawyers who are vocal about their negative experiences in the law are vocal because they are bitter, or that being vocal about your negative experiences in the law is necessarily proof that you are bitter. And neither assumption is true. In fact, my experience has actually been the opposite. Most of the former lawyers who I have interviewed for the podcast, or who I've worked with, or who I've connected with over social media or by email because of the work that I do, are incredibly grateful to have escaped legal practice and are speaking out about their negative experiences because they genuinely want to help those who are feeling trapped in the legal profession. Just because someone is vocal about a bad experience is not proof that they are bitter. Let me say that again. Just because someone is vocal about a bad experience is not proof that they're bitter. Using the term bitter suggests that either the feelings of these lawyers who are speaking out are unjustified, or them actually speaking out is somehow unjustified. And frankly, the fact that there is a perception that people who speak out about their negative experiences in the legal profession are bitter is part of what allows the many toxic things in the profession to go unaddressed. Because if people pointing out the flaws are just bitter, then they don't need to be taken seriously. Their concerns don't require any sort of self-reflection or change. Here's the next problem with this piece. Let me read you the pull quote that was used as the subheading for this article. Many former lawyers speak as though they have escaped some kind of hellish ordeal. Let's break down why this statement is so problematic. At its heart, the problem with this statement is that it questions other lawyers' experiences based on nothing. I guess the fact that the author doesn't think that legal practice is a hellish ordeal. I'm going to read that quote one more time. Many former lawyers speak as though they have escaped some kind of hellish ordeal. Implication: they haven't actually escaped a hellish ordeal. They're just speaking as though they have. This leads me to the question: why does the author not believe the stories that he's hearing from these former lawyers? On what basis is he judging that they have not, in fact, survived a hellish ordeal? I'm guessing the fact that it hasn't been a hellish ordeal for him. So at its heart, the premise of this piece is other people's experiences of this industry have been different than mine, but instead of accepting that their experiences have been different, I've concluded that they are either exaggerating or that their feelings about the experience are invalid. By the way, that is essentially the definition of gaslighting, causing someone to question their own judgments and reality. At the risk of stating the painfully obvious, just because the author of this piece has not found legal practice to be a hellish ordeal doesn't mean that others haven't had that experience. And the bizarre part is that there's actually external evidence that would show that, in fact, legal practice is a hellish ordeal for many. We know that lawyers have statistically significant higher rates of depression and anxiety, suicide, and substance abuse than people in other professions. So even if the author of the piece doesn't find legal practice to be a hellish ordeal and is unwilling to simply believe other people when they say it has been for them, one would think that the external evidence would at least cause him to question whether his own experience was universal. By the way I found out about this piece is that a podcast listener sent me the link and wrote the following note. The original piece is so weirdly gaslighty and invalidating. Not to mention, it ignores the realities of women and minorities. The same person in the same email thanked me for the content that I create and told me that it makes them feel so seen. So you see, the problem, as I see it, is not that there are a bunch of disgruntled former lawyers running around giving legal practice a bad name. The problem is that there are scores of lawyers who are suffering in silence, and when those of us who have left and also feel free to be vocal about our experiences speak out, the response from the legal profession is, "Why are you making us look bad? You're exaggerating." And that, my friends, is why Former Lawyer exists and why pieces like this are so toxic. Okay, we've covered a lot today, so I'm gonna stop there. Next week, we're going to dig into some of the claims that the article makes and talk about why "they're just bitter" is a woefully inadequate explanation for why former lawyers choose to speak out about their negative experiences. I'll see you there, and I truly hope that this series helps you on your journey to trade lawyering for a better life.